Hello, hello. I hope everyone out there is having a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and hope you all are doing quite well. I know parts of the U.S. right now are getting hit pretty hard by a snowstorm, a nor'easter, so hopefully those of you out there are staying warm and healthy. Today's going to be a little bit different than my usual streams, specifically because it's both my official debut and simply because I'm doing a 12-hour stream, because I'm insane. But we knew this about me already. Let's see. I tell you what, why don't we just go ahead and jump into the slides, and we'll see what happens. You know, it might help if I actually imported and unmuted the correct sound settings. You know, it wouldn't be a stream without something being scuffed. Alright, there we go. Now you all can hear me. Sorry about that. Anyway, I've prepared a short little slide deck that should go over most things that you would expect in a debut. So let's just go ahead and get started. So I thought we'd start with my avatar Ignitrix here. She's sort of my main girl. She's all of my branding and the avatar I use for all of my tabletop stuff specifically. Now, the reason for that is quite simple. She's originally a demon of Zeech, or Zeech, or there's a lot of ways to say it, but case in point, she's what is known as a Lady of Change, a play on the Lord of Change, if you will. If you're not versed in Warhammer 40k lore, I'll make it real simple for you. Basically, she's a high-ranking demon beneath the Chaos God of Change. What that means is that she's all about scheming, just-as-planned moments, and generally the type of shenanigans that come with being a game master. Now, I originally came up with Ignitrix as part of a choose-your-own-adventure story I wrote ages ago for 4chan's traditional games board. We're talking back in 2013. Now, the amazing Green Marine, as you see there, his Twitter handle is a little bit different, but he was responsible for creating the original character sheet and the outfit that I'm using right now. Twin Tails is, I guess you would call, my mother. She did all of the MUT work and did just as an amazing job as Green Marine. Now, final thought before we move on to the next slide. If you go digging into my tweet history, you'll probably see Ignitrix in various bits of cosplay. Let's just say it's a hobby of hers, and one I really don't mind supporting. You know, she looks good. Alright, up next, we have Ember, who I'll swap over avatars for a moment, but basically, she's pretty much the polar opposite of Ignitrix in some regards. Specifically, she is a demon of Khorne. Now, most people know Khorne if they know anything about Warhammer 40k, even if they don't know Warhammer 40k. If ever you heard the term Blood for the Blood God or Skulls for the Skull Throne, that's Khorne. If you haven't, I'll again simplify. Basically, Khorne's underlings are sort of these berserking warrior demons of the Warhammer 40k universe. Now, that's a little bit ironic because I use Ember for all of my chill streams, and I do that to help her work on her anger management. The first design was done by the wonderful Monorus. I've always tried to shill for Monorus when I can. He is an amazing friend, and I hope he's doing well this holiday season. Now, the outfit you see there was originally made by Sukmo, and then what happened is I turned that over to Twin Tails, and she once again worked her magic to produce a Vroid model. Now, when I swap over to Ember, you're going to see that she has a lot of extra features tied to point channel redeems once I enable them. Right now, I just have them off, simply so I can get through these slides, do a little bit of singing, and then we'll go to proper just chatting. And then, up next, we have myself, ELH. So, I've been a game master since about 2013. I started with Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition in college, eventually moving on to 5th edition. followed by the Warhammer 40k tabletop role-playing games, Cyberpunk 2020 and Shadowrun, and Star Trek Adventures. Now that's not all. I've also developed 2 systems of my own, Mermaids After the End and Nier Ugaku. And if that wasn't enough, I'm also in the process of self-publishing my own little sci-fi novella trilogy. The first novella is out on Amazon already, and I'd love it if you checked it out and sent me feedback. There should be a link to that right below the stream, and if you see this on YouTube, I'll try to remember to put a link there as well. Now, you're probably wondering how I managed to balance so many different narratives and keep track of all the characters. The joke is that I'm insane, but honestly, it's not that far off the mark. I have absolutely no shame in admitting that I am indeed a high-functioning autistic adult. And I know that to some people that might be a surprise, and all I would say is that I've worked rather hard to get to where I am today. And even then, I don't really see autism as being a fault. If anything, I think I would use it as a strength. But what I would also say on that regard is that VTubing is, shall we say, easier for me. But we'll talk about that during the just chatting portion of the stream. Oh, and apparently I've got a nice voice, or so I've been told. I mean, personally, I think you're all in on some sort of grand joke, but I mean, hey, if you people like it, I guess that's sort of what matters. And next, we're going to talk about a little bit what we're going to have on the channel proper. So, at this point, you're probably guessing that I do a lot of tabletop role-playing, and you'd be right. I'm running 7 different games right now. Let's focus on the Star Trek ones first. So if you don't know, Star Trek Adventures is the tabletop role-playing system out of Modiphius Entertainment. And it is by far one of the best role-playing systems I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing. I sort of transitioned... Let me put it this way. In Dungeons & Dragons 4th and 5th edition, I was a somewhat nice GM. I wasn't great. Hell, I still don't think I'm great, but more on that later. But I was sort of getting burned out on D&D. I was feeling really down. I wasn't really enjoying game mastering. It was one of those things where I almost quit tabletop role-playing altogether. When almost by chance, I came across Star Trek Adventures. And I was hooked immediately. I mean, I had been an avid Trekkie since pretty much my early teen years. And let's just say, and again, I'll go into further detail later, Star Trek is a very important thing for me for a very good reason. So basically, I started running a system. I started running Star Trek Adventures, and pretty much the last 3.5 years, something like that, I've been running a Star Trek game almost consistently. Now, right now, I'm running 3 Star Trek games. The first is Deep Space October. That is a Starbase-centric game that runs on Tuesday evenings. I think I saw Watney in chat there for a moment. But Watney is one of my players. Also, hello, Irakun. The second game that I'm running is Star Trek Bastet, and that is focused on a time-traveling Prometheus class that runs on Saturday evenings. Finally, there's the Groundskeepers game, a Undine, or Species 8472 campaign, on Sundays. And one of the things that I've been given feedback about the Groundskeepers is it's kind of like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure in Star Trek. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, I definitely recommend swinging by and checking it out. And if you really want to kind of see my growth as a GM and as a streamer, you can sort of track the progress on my YouTube channel where, oh Lord, just remembering it, all the way back at Star Trek Arcadia days. All of my Star Trek stuff and pretty much all my tabletop content is available on my YouTube channel. What I would say before we move on, though, is that everything I've ever run in Star Trek is all in the same shared universe, which sort of leads to the, fun crossovers and references when the situation permits. Now, it's not just my Star Trek games that are all connected. I'm also doing 3 Cyberpunk Red campaigns that are in a shared version of Night City. You have an all VTuber game of it on Thursdays and a mixed group on Saturdays. And I suppose if you ever really wanted to see me in person, the Wednesday game is a quote-unquote all normal webcams. Now there's a reason for that. I do VTubing mostly because, the whole autism thing, and it's easier for me both from an anxiety and from a social standpoint to do the VTubing. But I understand that VTubing is not for everyone, so that's sort of why my Wednesday game is quote-unquote normal. I'm doing it to be as accessible as possible, and the reason for that is because I was on the playtest team for Cyberpunk Red. In fact, I'm literally the first name in the playtest credits. If you were to open up the PDF or the hard copy, I'm the first name in there. And I've been a fan of Cyberpunk as a genre for quite some time. So kind of what I do for Star Trek, I want to do for Cyberpunk. I want to bring in as many people into the system as possible. I want to enable new game masters. I basically want it to be one of those things where, I'm doing the greater community a service by teaching new people, giving them experiences, that sort of thing. And certainly last but not least on the tabletop front is my Curse of Straw Dungeons & Dragons game that I run on Fridays. That is an all VTuber game as well, featuring Slightly DM, Chocojax, Creecat, and H. Superbia. It's a pretty fun game, even if you've been through Curse of Strahd already. You actually might see how quickly things get scuffed, is I believe what the kids are saying these days. God, I'm old. But outside of the tabletop stuff, I tend to run things with chill vibes, or at least games I don't have to stress out over. I used to be really big into things like World of Warcraft raiding, big into things like Team Fortress 2, Counter-Strike, League of Legends, and to put it simply, it did a number on my health. So these days, I'm, kind of just being a chill streamer best I can. On that front, I have the one weekly collab with Irie. We do Divinity on Fridays. Irie is in chat. Hi, Irie. And what I would say is that if you ever want to collab with me, I am totally open to it, assuming we can figure out a way to work with my schedule. On that same note, I am sort of poking around at the moment to see if I can wrangle together a semi-regular podcast crew on Mondays. Now, that's still probably a month or two out or even more, but I figured I'd mention it now anyways, especially because if all goes well, the sort of prototype for that is going to actually happen this coming Monday on the 28th. And your Muse K, I'm getting to that. The podcast I'm thinking of is, and I don't want to seem like I'm ripping off Domo, but if you know Domo, he is a VTubing personality, or I guess I should say a person who interviews VTubers. And I sort of want to emulate that feel, but on a lower, more personable sort of interviewee and sort of a regular sort of touch base. And I could be misinformed, but my understanding is Domo sort of does these one-off interviews, and he doesn't necessarily follow up every once in a while. Whereas on my sort of podcast, I want to sort of touch base with like 3 or 4 people, and then wait a month, and then touch base with them again. That way there's new things to discuss, there's new things we can talk about, things of that nature. But again, the prototype for that is going to be this coming Monday. I have the absolute honor of interviewing Yancha Gogo, who you may or may not know. They were not only instrumental in the Extra Lions game of Cyberpunk Red, which I'll talk about later, but they were basically a really good gal. I really get stand-up vibes from them, and I'm very eager to interview and have a casual chat with them. But let's move on to the next slide. Now, I don't expect anyone to actually do fan art, but I figured, hell, I'll make the hashtags, why not? So if you ever want to do fan art for Ignitrix, the hashtag is birdbrainart, all one word. And if you want to do art for Ember, the hashtag is cornetart, all one word. Let's see if I've got anything else. Yes, the 12-hour schedule, what we have for the rest of today. So we have a sort of debut slide thing, which we're doing now. Directly following this, we'll just be chatting. I'll be interacting with chat and just sort of telling a little bit about myself, hopefully to seem a little less intimidating. I'll touch on that later. But if all goes well and Irie feels up to it, she is a little bit under the weather right now, so this may or may not happen. But if all goes well, Divinity with Irie at 3. That'll maybe go to about 5. And then we'll have more Minecraft and just chatting from 5 to 7. And if we have to cancel Divinity, we'll basically just move Minecraft up and end up doing that for probably 4 hours. And we're mostly doing that to kill time until I'm running the Cyberpunk Red one-shot. It's a Christmas-themed one-shot. I think it'll be a good time for all. And I have members from my community and others showing up. Should be a good time. Then, assuming that doesn't run over, we have a game of Civilization 6 at 10 p.m. And that'll probably go to about 1 or 2. And I'll just do more just chatting and probably some GM prep to kill the time until we get to about 2 a.m. But yeah, that is the end of my slide deck. So I'm going to cut back over and get in a cozy blanket. But first, I suppose, you probably are wondering what this whole Ember model thing is about. Let's preemptively get that going. So give me one moment to switch over. Hey, and we're back. And here you have it. You have Ember in all of her glory. Also, Irie, that does not surprise me. You seem like the type who does like the Tohu song, so I figured you might like that one. But yeah, this is Ember. As you can see, she is a little bit more fancy than Ignitrix. Let's talk a little bit about her features. So you're probably wondering what the whole spike thing on the back is about. That's just mostly for show, kind of like horns. Sort of intimidating. The bigger the spikes, the more you've grown and gotten into fights, things of that nature. They are toggleable, which I really love. So whenever I get tired of them or they're blocking something, you can just turn those on and off. The other thing that she has going on is something that there is a point redeem for. There is JoJo mode, which, if you weren't ready for it, prep your butts, everybody. Here is JoJo mode. Now, the best part about JoJo mode is not only the menacing symbols floating in the background, but it works with all my emotes too. So it's one of those things where you'll see me drop this JoJo emote not only as a point redeem, but also because, there's a lot of approaching and questioning of approaching that takes place in the Divinity streams. So the other thing that there isn't really a point redeem for, but is something that is part of the model, is I also have Gurren Lagann glasses. And, they're kind of nice. Ignitrix has aviator shades, which you probably have seen in my previous streams. But yeah, that is Ember. I suppose while I'm here, I'll zoom out and show you just sort of what she's got going on. Alright, so where's Lupit? There's Lupit. Alright, so we're zooming out. And of course I don't have my leap motion plugged in, so she's not going to move her arms. But as you can see, she's kind of got the whole rocker girl aesthetic to her. She has the tail going on. She has some leg spikes as well. But yeah, that is Ember. And then let me just do that real quick. And yeah. So yeah, that concludes the little debut part of the stream anyway. I'm going to end the recording for YouTube, but start it right back up. So YouTube, thank you so much for tuning into my debut. Now, of course, Twitch, we're not going anywhere, but, you know, this is kind of the cutoff point for YouTube.